Welcome to the Richard Sherman Podcast. Hit that sub button if you're new. We're here to give you great NFL content. Please tune in.
Let's talk about another player that's just really taking the league by storm here. Jayden Daniels. And I know you touched on it briefly earlier, but the Washington Commanders are one of those teams, and we've talked about it the last couple of weeks. If Jayden Daniels can come in here and pull a CJ Stroud and elevate everyone around him, which it looks like he's doing, look out for the Washington Commanders. And I know you got a buddy on that defense, and Bobby Wagner leading the charge for this team defensively. They go on the road against the Arizona Cardinals, who've been a tough matchup for every team they played this year, and they absolutely shellac them 42-14. Jayden Daniels goes 26 of 30, Richard, for 233 yards. I mean, this kid's a rookie. I mean, are you kidding me? 89% completion percentage the last 2 weeks. Is it safe to say the defensive or the rookie player of the year is wrapped up with Jayden Daniels?
Well, it's a long season, so let's not wrap up anything. Let's not give anybody that before it's due, but he's definitely in the lead, Mitchell. And he's done a great job earning that. Before they punted this game, they had 15 straight, with it continuing into this game, 15 straight scoring drives without a punt. They punted this game. And this is a rookie quarterback. I mean, it goes to the offensive coordinator and the job that he's doing. It goes to obviously Jayden Daniels' efficiency, 89% over the last 2 games, completion percentage. But the kid is just poised, and he's having a good time. He's dancing. He's running when he needs to. He's keeping his body out of trouble, out of harm's way. He's not taking a lot of hits. He was week 1. He took a couple week 1 that I kind of cringed at. I said, be careful. I mean, we saw with Anthony Richardson, him once again go out with an injury. Like last year, he went out with a season-ending injury. We're praying that it's not a season-ending hip injury this time, and maybe it's just a stinger or a hip pointer, and he'll be back next week. But it's a dangerous game. And as a mobile quarterback, you have to get yourself out of harm's way. You can run. You can be dynamic, get down or get out of bounds. And he's doing a great job of doing that. But let's talk about his arm, Mitchell, his decision-making.
Mm-hmm.
He had one pass that I know got away from him, end up being an interception in the ball game, which I'm sure he wants that one back. But for all intents and purposes, this kid has had great command. He looks a lot like CJ Stroud did last year, not to take anything away from what he's doing because he's his own man, but just making the game look really easy. And this is a hard game to play. It's definitely a hard game to quarterback. And we've seen that a number of times from other quarterbacks. He just seems like he's prepared for the moment. Dan Quinn, Bobby Wagner have this defense right where they need to be. Competing in these ball games. They held the Arizona Cardinals, and the Arizona Cardinals have had some up and down games where they scored a lot of points, they've not scored a lot of points, et cetera, et cetera. But they held this offense to 14 points, and they were able to get huge stops in this offense and run game. And Brian Robinson and these receivers, he's spreading the ball around. These veterans, Zach Ertz catching the passes. This is going to be a team that has a chance. Really has a chance to win this division because the other teams that you would think are favored and dominant, the Dallas Cowboys, incredibly talented team, are now really beat up and really just not looking like they're on track offensively to be dominant. And then you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, who just got beat pretty handily by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers without A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson. Just look vulnerable. And if you let this team get too many wins ahead, you're not going to be able to catch up. And if they can find a way to beat the Dallas Cowboys or to beat the Philadelphia Eagles once, maybe twice, Mitchell, we're talking about a changing of the guard because this quarterback isn't going anywhere.
And I like the changing of the guard call because I like this team in the division. I mean, you go on the road last week and beat the Cincinnati Bengals, who are desperate for a win on the road, Richard, and dominate that game for the most part. I know it got a little close late, but, dude, I mean, the Washington Commanders had that game controlled for the bulk of that game. And then they go on the road again against a Cardinals team that is, again, another team that's desperate for a win. And they dominate. Jayden Daniels, I like the Washington Commanders. I like them in the division. They can take advantage because who knows what's going to happen with Micah Parsons, with Dexter Lawrence being out. The Cowboys could go on a little dry spell here too. And like you said, they did not look themselves at all on Thursday night. I know they walked away with a win, but your telecast, everyone, Tony Gonzalez said it best. I mean, this team just does not look like the Dallas Cowboys. And you see the Eagles reeling with injuries. I think this might be the Washington Commanders division. Richard, let's take it to Indianapolis. We saw Justin Fields. You know, he played decent, 22 of 34, 312 yards in a loss. You know, had one blunder there with the fumble. What are your thoughts if you're Mike Tomlin? You experience your first loss of the season. If Russell Wilson's back and ready to go next week, where's your mind at? Are you sticking with Justin Fields or are you moving over to Russell Wilson?
I think you have to play the hot hand. You can't risk, Russ trying to get up to speed. It's tough to come into the National Football League and play a game 4 or 5 games into the season because everybody else is up to speed. Everybody else is moving 5 games. They're in rhythm now. They're not, first couple games, you're rusty. You're knocking off rust. Coverages are knocking off rust. Players may have more bust. Offensive line is still trying to get some continuity. Defensive linemen are, trying to work out their moves. But 5 games in, teams are raring to go. And for Justin Fields to take the kind of step he did in the second half of this game, first half was still kind of rough. We can talk about the fumble, just a bad play where he should have just got rid of it and saved the bad play, but trying to do too much. But he could have folded right there. He could have went into the tube. He could have went into the hole. And at times last year with the Chicago Bears, he did. And, problems got compounded. But he showed a real growth in this game, 312 yards, 10 rushes for 55 yards, and 2 touchdowns. When he needed to use his legs, he did. And he didn't lean on them. He didn't say, man, I got to use my legs I'm scared to throw it. He threw it when he could. George Pickens hit him a number of times. Unfortunately, that was another play that hurt him. It was a George Pickens fumble in the red zone where he just hit him with a good pass. George Pickens trying to get more yards, fumbles, gives the ball back, and you lose a really close ball game where if you don't have that turnover, maybe you win that game. And this wasn't their defense's best performance. As I said before, they had been playing freaking world-class football the first couple games of the season. TJ Watt single-handedly pretty much winning games. They're scoring on defense. They're doing a lot of great things. This game, against the offense that you're not expecting a ton from, and a defense that's been statistically one of the worst in the National Football League, you thought this was a layup game, but there's no layups. There's no guarantees in the National Football League, as we continue to see. And in a game where they were struggling, and Flacco came in, a veteran quarterback who can just get the job done, hit the open guy, complete the easy passes, complete the layups, really gave them issues, and they needed Justin Fields to play over and beyond. And for a while, he did. He had a chance with 2 minutes to go at the end of the game to drive the ball down the field. Again, they had some mishaps, a missed snap, put him behind the 8 ball, could never recover and get back ahead of the sticks. But this has to be very, very encouraging if you're Mike Tomlin and you're just thinking about the development of Justin Fields and what he could be in the future. But who knows? I don't make the call. Maybe they play Russell Wilson next week and they say, hey, man, they didn't see enough from Justin Fields to continue, but it just wouldn't feel right. And I don't think the fans or the players would expect that.
You gotta love Joe Flacco just coming into this game and continuing his hot streak from last year. I mean, comes in late, salvages a Browns season, like really turns around his career, and then he comes in here, and it's like I bet the Steelers fans and coaching staff were probably wishing that Anthony Richardson was still in the game because he goes 16 to 26, 168, 2 touchdowns. Pushing the ball all over the place, getting Josh Downs involved, who really hasn't done anything all season. It goes to show you when you have a quarterback that can distribute the football and you got weapons like the Colts have, Joe Flacco might have just found himself another home, Richard. Who knows how long Anthony Richardson's out, but Flacco continues doing Flacco things. Let's take it to Chicago. Chicago gets a much needed win. Caleb Williams has arguably his best game as a pro, 17 to 23 for 157 and a touchdown. But Richard, what are your thoughts on him thus far? Because you're not seeing the same fanfare that you see with Jayden Daniels. You see with Jayden Daniels, you see, hey, this guy's going to be a superstar. I don't know if I feel the same way about Caleb Williams just yet. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, just give him credit. It's hard to win in this league, and this defense has given him a lot of chances to win. They're keeping him in the game. They're playing great football. Jaquan Brisker could have had 2 interceptions in this game. One of them, he stepped out of bounds, leading to a field goal for the Rams, but got the game-sealing interception at the end. I just saw Caleb Williams miss a few passes that you expect an NFL quarterback to make, and he's young. And he did get sacked 3 times, and I've been very tough on the offensive line of the Chicago Bears, and they did a much better job in this game. They did a much better job in this game, opening holes up for DeAndre Swift to get through. He had a number of big runs that helped him. And that's again, the best friend of a young quarterback is a run game and your defense, and take pressure off of him so that he can develop and he can miss a few throws. And then maybe he start to learn within the game and win and hit those throws later on. And he end up hitting DJ Moore for a touchdown late in the game, a really good pass, but he missed on a few. And he benefited from a defensive PI on Tre'Davious White when he was guarding Keenan Allen, got it to the 1-yard line. They run it in. So you appreciate his development, and him being more efficient, caring about the ball. But those sacks, a lot of those sacks were him holding the ball too long. Things he has to learn. You got to speed up your process. Understand when it collapses, you don't have more than 4 or 5 seconds to get that ball out of there. Don't always try to play hero ball. There were times he got out the pocket. He looked like he did in college, that quick flick of the wrist that everybody's falling in love with, that Patrick Mahomes-like movement. But when you're in that pocket and it's collapsing and you're saying, hey, sometimes you just got to say, hey, we don't got it this play. Let it go, and that would avoid some of those sacks. And some offensive linemen, would say those should be counted differently, because offensive linemen say get rid of the football, and quarterbacks say, hold on to the football because I want to protect my efficiency. But the sacks fall off on the offensive line. So if you throw it away, it's an incompletion, but it's not a sack on the offensive line. But if you hold it, it's a sack on the offensive line, but it's not an incompletion. So it's not necessarily a negative play on the quarterback stat sheet. So he has to find a way to get that ball out. But congratulations to him, another win. And it's hard to win in this league.